In this session, I want to talk to you about, you have all these tools, skills, strategies, tactics, approaches to turning around your business. How many got, if you stop right now, more than enough to take your business to a whole nother level? Raise your hand and say, I. So as we talked about before, knowing what to do is very different than doing what you know. And when something is new, you don't know it quite as well. So there tends to be even more hesitancy. So part of what we're doing in this compression, by you being in this environment, is putting you in a position where day and night you're thinking about this stuff, and it starts to amalgamate, it starts to connect. Because as your brain gets overloaded, the beauty of that is your conscious mind kind of disappears a little bit, and your unconscious starts to take over. And that's the part of your brain that makes your heart beat 100,000 times a day without you having to think about it. So immersion has that power. That's the beauty of what we're doing. And then many of you are going to get this program, you're going to go back through it a step at a time, and you're going to repeat it. You're going to do that spaced repetition by way of video or audio or some combination of it, maybe using net time, no extra time. So listening to it maybe while you're working out, things of that nature. You'll embed it even more. So let's just assume you organize things well, and we're going to make sure tomorrow you leave with a real clear plan. The plan's in front of you. It's all ready to rock and roll. What is the single most powerful constraint as to whether or not your business is going to grow or not? What is it? Me, meaning the business owner, yourself. And if you're not the business owner, the biggest constraint that you have an impact on is yourself. And as you heard yesterday when we talked and looked at HomeX's example, here's a company that's growing leaps and bounds in a multi-billion-dollar business, traveling around the world. The economies are tearing apart in many places, and it's growing. But the constraint that they saw was the vision of the founder, what they were willing to believe is possible. And the great thing about them is, we didn't know. We didn't know it wasn't possible. That's a very helpful thing not to know, just to go out there and do it. How many of you, when you started out in business, didn't know what you couldn't do, and that was quite helpful? Let me see your hand. Say I. Me too. If I look back at stuff that I did back then, I think, my God, that's unbelievable. I can't believe I would say that or do that or try that. But what's interesting is in the beginning of your business, and when people are brand new at something, they'll try almost. But if you start to succeed, some of you are later in your life cycle. And so as you start to succeed now, you've got something to lose. And now you don't implement at the same level. You've got something to maintain. You've got something to hang on to. And so you have to be cautious about that. But besides your own vision, the limitations of your belief or vision, which hopefully have been expanded, how many feel like that has been expanded? If you shout of a doubt here, say I. I know it has, I can see it. I've had the conversations with you. Each time you hear someone, you see a different perspective, a different way, and you go, my gosh, there's just so many ways to take my business to the next level. I don't have to wait. I don't have to hope for some, quote, good economy. The worst economy is my deepest friend because it's wiping out all my competitors and giving me an opportunity to take market share or become the leader or take their customers or buy them for a song. Selling has kind of an interesting connotation because in our culture, when we think of salespeople, we think of high integrity individuals who have a huge positive influence on the quality of our lives. Tell me the first words you associate to a salesperson, quick. Scumbag, thank you, very nice, scumbag. What else? Manipulator, liar, greasy, deceptive. Guy goes, great guy. Now, how many of you in this room are salespeople? Let me see your hands. If you're an owner of a business, you better be raising your hand. If you are a parent, you better be raising your hand. Because by the way, are kids great salespeople, yes or no? You don't have to teach them how to deal with rejection. They just let it pass on by and keep coming, right? You can't have an ice cream cone, 10 minutes later they're licking on one with a smile on their face, right? No one taught them any scripts. No one taught them anything. What I want you to get is that the single most important skill in life, we hate the word selling, so I'll give you a word that it really is that doesn't have the negative connotation. It's the word that all leaders have. What would that word be? Influence. What changes companies is leaders. The only way you change a company is leadership. If I want to change a company that I own and I want to make a shift in that company, the number one thing I'm going to do is shifting leadership. That might be taking leaders to a different level. That might bring new leaders in. That might be new leaders of new voices with new perspectives. with new skill sets, new directions, but we need to take things to another level. Leaders solve problems and leaders maximize resources. If you're going to solve problems, you can't do it yourself or it would already been solved. You have to get others to help you to do it. That requires influence. True? If you're going to get people to maximize resources, that requires influence. If you're going to get people to partner with you, provide you resources, capital, suppliers, anything, that requires influence. If you're going to have an impact on your kids or your community or the world, that requires influence. There is no more important skill of leadership than influence. And yet most of us think of it like selling, and as a result, we don't master influence. So I'm not here today to try and get you to become a master of influence in 45 minutes or so. Am I chatting with you here because we have so many of the speakers. This is the area of life I am most focused on. Because I know that if you can't influence, you can't lead. But if you can influence powerfully, intelligently, with integrity, there's no limit to whatever you can envision and what you can make real. And if your influence becomes not just you as the influence, but you're able to influence systems, people, company, culture. If you can turn other people into influencers, now whatever you vision about can be made into a reality. And so as a skill of influence, we got to ask ourselves, how many agree leaders are what change companies? Raise your hand if you agree with that. Say aye. And leaders' number one skill is influence. If you agree, say aye. But then the question becomes, how do you influence? How do you influence consistently with integrity? You can influence many ways. You can do it without integrity. But the good news is we live in a world today where whatever you do, it's transparent to the world because there are no secrets anymore, are there? Try to have a secret today, bless you. You can forget the secret. With the internet, with the culture we have, with the way the world is today, there are no more secrets, and whatever you think is still possible to keep a secret, give it 3 or 4 more years and it'll be impossible. Every phone call you make is recorded. There's no single phone call that goes in and out of North America that they don't have a recording of, and they can search by word, by tone, by tempo. They can even recognize voices now. There is no such thing as privacy. Everything you've ever put on the internet is there forever, and people know it and can search it. The way you write is searchable now. You can not sign your email, you can put it on somebody else's email, and the structure of your language and the way you influence things can be studied at this level. So the good news about that is manipulation as an ongoing tool for success is over. But adding value will never go out of style. Truth will never go out of style. So influencing with integrity is the secret. But what really influences people? Do facts and figures, we give you enough facts and figures out of a core story, is that going to influence people? No. It's the weaving of that story together in a way that produces what shifts people. And that's human emotion. Ultimately, the big game here is emotion. You have to influence emotion. You have to influence the emotion of your people. If you're going to maximize resources, and if we all agree, as we talked about the other day, it's not a lack of resources, it's a lack of what? Resourcefulness. If you're creative enough, if you're playful enough, if you're determined enough, if you're focused enough, you can find a way. If you're giving enough, if you're generous enough, if you're honest enough, if you're courageous enough, you will get people to help you. You will find the way. You will make that thing happen. You'll access the resource. You get someone to coach you, teach you, loan it to you, let you try it, drive it, experience it. So it's the ability to influence emotion because that's what affects our intellect. That's the bottom line. A core story is only there to give you a set of facts to educate someone that will make them emotional enough to make a decision. And what they do is they go through a series of things that you have emotions about. They may say them in a non-emotional way, but the only reason they work is because you know they're going to open the person's emotion. How many agree with me on this? Say aye. So as leaders, we can never forget that humans are emotional creatures, including ourselves. And to influence other people, we have to know what already influences them. And we can't ever forget what truly influences them. It's going to come down to our ability to connect with them at a deep emotional level or get others to do the same. Here's how I'd say it in a really simple term. To influence someone, you have to already be influenced. Right? To move somebody, you better be moved. To touch somebody, you can't touch somebody about your product or service or vision or idea or your company if you're not touched. To persuade others, you have to be persuaded. You can't give somebody else what you don't have. Now, you may have it intellectually, and here's the challenge. When you first meet somebody in your relationship, and you're all excited. What's the level of energy like? 0 to 10, make the sound of that energy. You meet somebody you're totally excited by, make the sound, everyone. 6 months, 6 years, 20 years later. It's scary, isn't it? And it's not time, because there are people I've been with them, been together 65 years, and they're still out of their mind for each other. They make the same amount of noise you did in the beginning here. What changes is, very often, when you're around something enough, I don't care what it is, there's a law called the law of familiarity. The law of familiarity says this: if you're around something enough, you take it just a little bit for granted. And it doesn't matter what it is, it's not that you don't care, it's that you get used to it. It's that the variety of it is not quite as high. It's not so new, and with that, sometimes you give it less significance. Even though in your heart you know it's significant, you don't keep the aliveness of it. It becomes something you intellectualize versus something you feel inside your body with a passion. So there are people say, but we love each other. Yeah, well, that's great. You know, hug each other every now and then. You say you love each other, little kiss like that. Was that how it was in the beginning? No. It isn't time. It's that most people don't understand that this emotion, this intensity, this passion has to be constantly reinforced every single day. And like any muscle, if you don't use it, so then you have the base understanding why you do what you do, but you've lost the energy that makes it alive. And so if you're going to be touching people, you got to be touched. So then the question is, how do we influence ourselves? How do we influence other people? We got to get them into their emotions. We got to get ourselves into the emotions that are going to move us to action. And we got to do that ongoing, because otherwise all the stuff you wrote down will die. It'll die in your book. It'll die in your head. There has to be a level of emotion, a level of hunger in you that makes you go follow through. There's got to be a level of energy in you that when you go share it with people, you're able to influence them to follow through. And when they don't do it, enough to get back in there with them again and get them to do it again. This is where the whole game gets won or lost. Do you agree or disagree with me on this? So what we got to look at is, first of all, us. How many of you have days when you wake up and you feel like, I don't want to talk to people today? How many got days like this in your life? Say I. But again, as I said the other day, if you're the leader, you don't have that choice. If you're the leader, you have to get in a good state. If you're the leader, you have to get yourself in that place. And how many of you have had some gut checks? Let me see again in the last 6 months, 12 months in your business with economy changing like it's never changed before. How many have had those gut checks? Say aye. So what do? We have to become masters of influence, which means we have to be able to master the state of our own organization. To master the state of our own organization, we've got to know how to change that. How fast, my friends? How fast? And where does it have to start? Ourselves, since we're the first constraint. And if we can do it with ourselves and influence, then we can teach everybody else to influence. We've said business is innovation and marketing. You have to influence people to innovate, because they're not going to just do it because they're used to what works and it's easier and they know it. Innovation means massive what? Change. How many people go, give me more massive change in my life with all the other things I'm trying to hang on to? They're not going to do that. You have to influence people to innovate. And marketing is influence. So, what influences us is our states. How do we change our states? Let's start with you and I and with anybody we're going to work with. You've worked with me before, you know the first answer. If you're going to change somebody's state, the fastest way to do it is physical. Trying to change somebody's mind is really hard. Change their body, their mind will go. If you doubt it, give somebody enough alcohol and just see how quickly you can change them. True? Give them enough alcohol, I don't care who they are, they're going to change. What are you changing? Biochemistry, physiology, physical body, and the emotion, the mind will shift. That's why people take drugs. That's why people eat. When they go eat, it's a biochemical change in their body. So, but we can do this through movement. We can do this through change. So if you want to be the leader and you're going to be affected, first thing I'd say to all of you going home, so you don't feel overwhelmed, is you need to develop an ongoing discipline, because we are our rituals. And I mean a physical one. If you want to say, well, why is my life the way it is today? Look at your rituals. Whether you call them rituals or not, you have them. Most of you get up and you have a set of rituals. You go straight to email, or you go straight and work out, or you go have your breakfast, or you hit the snooze alarm at least 3 times. It's your ritual. Who knows what I'm talking about here? And if you want to know what somebody's like, you can see their rituals. You can look at anybody's body in this room, if you had them take their clothes off, and you know some of their rituals or lack thereof. Is it true? If every day you get up and your ritual is you go to Starbucks and order a mocha, or whatever those things are that you have, right? And a big muffin and whatever it is, right? And that's what you do every day. It's not hard to figure out what you're going to be like by 10:30 in the morning. You're going to be looking for your next coffee, your next whatever, because you want to stimulate your adrenal glands like crazy, and they're going to drop predictably. And we know what your stress level is going to be like. We know when your energy is going to go and fade. It's predictable because of your rituals. If you eat a certain way, you can predict that person's going to be fat and tired. You eat a different way, you know. If a person eats and they exercise a certain way, you know what their body's going to be like. Who here works out 5 days a week, never misses? It's just your life. Let me see your hands. Look at the number of people here. That's fantastic. Give everybody a hand. That's really fantastic. Who here honestly never works out consistently? Right? Don't clap. Now here's what's interesting. I'm not saying one is right as one is wrong, but will those two different rituals create a different body, yes or no? If we wanted to really make it clear, we'd say everybody works out 5 days a week, stand up, we can look at them, sit down, everybody doesn't work out, stand up, look at them. It'll be pretty obvious. Now, some people's metabolism is different, they get by with different things, but you get the picture, don't you? Your relationships today are the results of your rituals. If the first thing you do every day when you come home is, hi, honey, and then you go and give them a little peck on the cheek, and then you sit down and start typing your emails, or you flip on the news, it's not hard to know what your relationship's going to be like. You guys might love each other, but it's going to be one boring, dead relationship. It's like having a brother or sister. But if your new ritual was, and you just, in the beginning, you made it a ritual. You just made it for fun. You say, every day when I come home, the minute I'm going to do is I'm going to yell my husband or wife's name, or sometimes my wife's a little crazy, so I go, Lucy, I'm home. And then we both go running. Wherever she is in the house, wherever in the house, we go running full speed like lovers that haven't seen each other in 6 months. And we do it, ask my assistant, all the time. Now, not every day, but it's our ritual to this process, right? It's just a crazy thing. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the hand, but that's not why I'm telling you to do this. I'm telling you this because I want you to create yours. Because when you do that and you're playful and crazy, and you do that on a regular basis, like you can't wait to see each other. And the biggest ritual that we have besides physical, and by the way, let me just say to you this. When you go home, if you want to transform your business, transform you by creating first, if you don't already have one, a set of physical rituals that you're not going to miss. I don't care if it's 3 days a week, 4 days a week, something that's going to make you physically strong, because in a place where there's going to be a lot of fear, the way you deal with crisis is number one thing you should do is feed your mind. And you're doing that. Get yourself new answers. Immerse yourself in new environments. Get new voices. Have new perspectives. Ask some new questions. Isn't that what we've been doing here? Right? And we're doing it together and bringing all these people together. I basically, to create innovation in your life and marketing, I've assembled here 19 people. You assembled 5 days of your life, and we're just rocking day and night. It's the total immersion of what I taught you in innovation. It's really what it is, but this has got to continue. For it to continue, though, we've also been managing your state to a great extent, right? Most of you don't go home in 4 or 5 days and start clapping like crazy and screaming and shaking. You don't do that yourself, right? And so some of you are going to go like, wow, it doesn't feel the same as at the seminar and stuff. You know, I'm back here by myself and my people aren't doing this. But some of you will go home and initiate this. You're going to have your physiology 5, your 5 minutes of physiology shift, once an hour, once every 90 minutes, or no more than once every 2 hours. You're going to start your morning with everybody, and you're going to bring in and get some little audio clip of something from a movie or something that blasts across, the room. And have everybody stand at attention. You're going to do some crazy stuff if you're smart. Go over Zappos and see what they do. They got the most crazy stuff going on there. All the stuff that I do in seminars, they do every day at their location with their people. And people can't wait to get to work and they're in a certain state. So if I were you, I'd feed my mind, you're doing that. I then condition my body. Because your body is going to give you the strength to follow through. And there's nobody in this room who can afford to do that. And I don't care if that's going for a walk. And as you're doing a walk, you're doing what I call my hour of power, or 15 minutes, to thrive, where you're just putting yourself in state, maybe doing incantations. You got to do something that gets the blood moving through you on a consistent basis. And once in a while, it's really pushing you beyond your comfort zone. So when you get beyond your comfort zone in your mental side, there's already a reservoir there. Who knows what I'm talking about here? Say I. So feed your mind. Feed your mind with the information. Feed your mind with examples and the stories. Part of why it's here is good for you to see all these people that are succeeding in this tough environment. How many found that to be valuable? Just as a balanced perspective, say aye. You know, go read some autobiographies, but feed your mind every day, condition your body every day. And then the third thing is become a master of influence by asking the right questions. And that's what I want to talk to you about. Questions are the answer. You want new answers for your life? You need new questions. You're not getting through to somebody. The answer of getting through to them is not to talk more, it's to ask them more. It's to get underneath, it's to discover. Remember I said the other day, to influence another human being, you have to know what already what? Influences them. You can't do that by talking to them. If I tell you something, you can doubt it. But if you tell me, by me asking you a question, you tell me how it is, it's true. That's the basis of influence for those who are more sophisticated. Now, there are lots of ways to influence. You can tell stories and metaphors. You can influence by example. You can influence by rewards or by pain. But the fastest way to influence is to get inside of somebody by questions. Questions are the answer. If you want to give somebody a gift, ask them the right question. Because all we experience in life, if I say to you, what did you just experience? Freedom. Your brain just searched 10 million files and went, don't know what that means. There's nothing in there. I don't know what that is, right? Our experiences, we don't experience life. We experience our association to whatever we're stimulated by. So if I said to you, I want to tell you a story about my senior year in high school. And I start telling you about my senior year in high school, and there was this girl that I was so in love with. Now, by the way, I can go on and on and on, but you're not experiencing my story. You're experiencing your story. You went back to high school as soon as I start to tell it. And you're experiencing somebody you were interested in. Very quickly, you're going for a reference point you can relate to. How many see what I'm talking about here? If I want you to think about your mother, all I got to do is talk about mine. Because the only way you understand things is by referencing it. So questions cause you to go inside and reference things. The right question can change anything. Who's been with me at Date with Destiny where I take, okay, so people who've been Date with Destiny know I do a program only twice a year. It's my favorite program because, frankly, I've already laid enough foundational things that now I can just do my art. And my art is I give people these things to do. They stand up, and it doesn't matter what's going to happen. Somebody may stand up and, you know, they're frustrated because they've achieved everything they ever wanted and they made $100 million and they can't figure out why they're depressed. A real example of a lady I worked with just the other day. Completely depressed, so much so that she's saying, I don't think, she gave us a reference point of somebody, I don't know the person's name, but I guess they're famous in the art community. Somebody killed themselves, and she goes, I don't think people should be upset with him. I think you should be able to take your own life. What's that telling you? Right? So it's like, I've never lost a suicide in 30 years, out of thousands. It's one of the things I'm most proud of my entire life. Children, adult people. I don't say that to brag, I'm saying it because once you know a human being's needs, if you know what they're really after, and you know how to ask the right questions, you can connect them to any new experience of life you want them to be in. And I know all human beings have a need for certainty. Certainty they can be okay, they can avoid pain, they can have comfort or pleasure. Think of certainty as fundamental comfort. If you have no certainty that this floor was going to hold you up and we're on the 8th floor right now, you know, you might not be paying attention to me. I remember once I did a seminar in Switzerland, and it was about 2,500 people. It wasn't a huge seminar, but we were in this building, and it was a building you usually did trade shows in, just like this one, you drive trucks in and so forth. But as we jumped, everybody was jumping in the room like that, and we were rocking them. I took the house to a different level. The floor started going up and down as we're doing this much up and down, like a wave. By the way, how fast do you think people stopped jumping? And I could feel, we're all feeling, people looked around. So I called the building people, and we had everybody always come in. They did this inspection and everything else. Now, this is the first day of a 3-day UPW seminar. So those who've been to Unleash the Power Within with the firewalk and so forth know it makes what we did this week look like nothing because the intensity is at a whole different level. But it becomes fun because you become so strong so quickly. You're not sitting so much. You're in it. And I can't do 3 days of people sitting for that many hours. They'd be bored out of their mind. It wouldn't change. There'd be no transformation. So they come back and say, the building is fine. It has this much play. It's just trucks usually drive on once. They don't go up and down, up and down. It's a different motion. I said, are you absolutely positive? No problem. So I tell everybody that we're still going to jump up and down. Now, this is going to require some leadership. Does that make sense? What do I got to do? I got to be able to what? Influence them. And by the way, what do you think the likelihood is where everybody told them they're starting? There's just no way they're going to do it. I said, well, if they don't do it, we might as well not do the event, because you can't physically sit still and not move, because emotion is created by motion. So I said, it's not going to work for 3 days. Now, it must happen. So since it must, my job as the leader is to influence them. So first thing I got to do is I got to own how important this is. I can't get you to own it if I don't own it. How many agree with me on this? Say I. If I own it like 90% or 95%, will I get everybody, yes or no? You don't get people to walk on fire by 90%. I think you'll probably do well. Right? I got to own it. And by the way, what if I said, okay, we're going to walk on fire. Okay, who wants to go first? Not me, somebody else. Somebody else go first. Right? As the leader, I always go first. Right? That's my job. So all I did was I divided up the room, and I realized they needed certainty. So I said, watch, we're going to do this with a small segment. We're going to divide you into 3 teams. And so I divided one section, second section, third section, and we all jumped, and I got them jumping, and the room didn't move, stop. And that's what we did. We went all weekend long on these 3 sections, and the room didn't shake. I figured out how to give them certainty till they forgot about it. It was totally fine, right? But whenever you're going to accomplish something, sometimes you got to break it down, but you got to provide this need for certainty. Everybody has a need for uncertainty. Everybody has a need for variety. We all have a need to feel like there's a surprise in our life. Who here loves surprises? Raise your hand, say I. You like the surprises you want. The surprises you don't want, you call problems. Isn't it true? But you need those too to feel alive. See, you like surprises that you're certain, you're not sure they're going to happen, but if they do, you're certain it'll feel good. Isn't it true? So people have a need for certainty. They need uncertainty. They need variety. They need stimulation. People have a need to feel significant, to feel unique, to feel special, to feel important. If you help people meet that need, trust me, the world is yours. I remember many years ago, Steve Wynn is a good friend of mine, and I love him. He's one of the most brilliant people I know. He's not only a genius entrepreneur, but he is an artist. He's one of the most creative people. Steve could talk about this lectern, and he could make it the most magnificent lectern you could possibly imagine. Tony, look at the metal on this. And he can just describe things in a way that are just unbelievable. So we were having dinner the very first time we ever met. It was New Year's one year, and fireworks are going off, and he and I are like totally into it. And we were talking about influence, that this is the ultimate skill in life of any business owner, and that's his only job is influence. He creates things, he loves that, but I can create all this. Guess how valuable this is if I can't influence you, that it's valuable for you? 0. It dies. It stays in my house. So we're describing this, and I was describing these 6 human needs, certainty and uncertainty. And when I got to significance, he lit up like a Christmas tree. He goes, Tony, if you want to make billions, if you want to make billions of dollars, that's the one to give people. If you get them to link buying your product, makes them more significant, they'll spend any amount of money they want. He said, think about it. People get these little handbags. We buy these handbags. And he said, they cost nothing to make. They pay thousands of dollars because it's got somebody's initials on it. It's not even made better. I can show you one that's made better that costs 1/100th of the price, 1/10th of the price. When he built the Win and then the Encore, last one, $2.7 billion for a hotel. But guess what? When everybody else is freaking out, you go over to the Win right now, it's full. Because the people that want to be known as the best have got to go to the best place. That's the need structure you want to meet. 4th need, connection and love. Everybody needs connection. Everybody needs love. In fact, all we want that significance for is if we think if we're significant enough, people will love us. If I'm worth it, if I'm enough, if I'm beautiful enough, strong enough, smart enough, rich enough, intelligent enough, playful enough, funny enough, something enough, then I'll be loved. So if you're going to influence somebody, you got to know what's influencing in them is the need for certainty. And when you talk about change, you just mess with that. True? There's a need for uncertainty, but you got to show them how it's positive uncertainty, a variety. They need to feel significant, and gosh, what if you bring this new thing in to change and it doesn't work out as well for me? I feel stupid, I look like I failed, I feel insignificant. Love, gosh, I don't know if I'll even love myself if this doesn't go well. How many follow the pattern of what people get concerned about, right? So these first four needs, everybody finds a way to meet, even if they have to blame somebody else, or work really hard, or make up a story in their head. Everybody finds a way to be certain, everybody finds a way to have varieties, everybody has a way to be significant, everybody has a way to feel at least connected, if not loved. But ultimately, the final two needs is everyone has to grow. Remember we talked about this first day? Progress equals happiness. If you grow, you feel alive. If you don't grow, you feel like you're dying. And so to influence people, people have this need for growth. And if they feel like they're growing with you, remember I said you can use fear to motivate them? That'll work for a while. You can use incentives. That'll work for a long time too, but there is a limit to incentives. The only thing that makes people feel fully alive long term is they feel happy because they're growing, they're expanding. Remember when Tony talked about how they took the same process of becoming a buyer for Zappos, but they broke it into more steps? Still 2 years, but you were a buyer level A, buyer qualified level B, level C, and people are like, yes, I made it. Progress, growth. And finally, what's the last need? Contribution. And you heard him and many others talk about, and you've seen the people here that are most successful feel like what they're doing has a meaning beyond themselves. Now, I'm reminding you of these 6 needs, and very quickly here, because if you and I are going to influence other people, we have to know what already influences them. And of those 6 needs, who has all 6 of these needs? Who would you say? Everybody. Who here has a need to be loved at some level, whether you admit it, or at least connected? Say I. Who here needs to feel unique, special, important, significant? Raise your hand, say I. Including the people who go, I don't need to be special. No, I don't need that. I'm a Christian. Or I'm a Jew. Or I'm a Muslim. Or I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. They find a way to be unique. Everybody needs this. It's human nature. So we need all these needs to be met, but we don't need them all equally. We've learned to value some of these 6 more than others. Some value certainty more than anything else. And so they live their life trying to meet that need. And if you try to convince them how exciting this new project's going to be, you just messed up totally. What you got to tell them is, you know what, if we don't change this, do you realize what's going to happen? Do you think that what we have right now is certain and solid? Do you not understand this is evaporating between us? If you and I are going to have any certainty at all, this is what we must do immediately. And they're like, let's make it happen. Right? If you go to somebody who's more variety driven, some people, the top of their list, they all want certainty, they all want uncertainty, we all want them all. But we tend to have 2 that we value more than any others. Those 2 are the driving force in a person. So if somebody's variety driven and you go, okay, we're going to keep doing these same things because we got to keep fundamentally doing these elements, and the changes we're making, they're not that big because you're trying to convince people so that they won't be too fearful, you lost that person. You got to pull them aside and say, look, you and I got to understand something here. This is an entirely new game we're about to begin. Really? You'll have their total interest. You know, John here's doing a great job keeping the foundation going, but I need you to help me partner because we're going to enter something that's never been done before. If somebody's significance driven, which all of us have a need for significance, but if it's at the top of the list, you got to let them know what's going to come of this. It's going to make the game of this business so different than anybody else. How we're going to be better than anybody else, how we're going to take market share, how we're going to be number 1. You're going to have their full attention. And if somebody that's connection and love driven at the top, how are you going to approach them? Come on, how are you going to approach them? What are you going to say? Listen, we as a family got to do this. Let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to be stronger. We're going to love the hell of our customers. We're going to take care of them better than we ever have. These are the things that are going to connect us to each other and to our clients like never before. Do you realize what kind of family we're going to build by implementing this? They're in. If they're growth driven, it'll be obvious. You don't even have to explain it. They'll just see the growth opportunity and go for it. If they're contribution driven, it's very obvious. So you have to be able to bring your message to someone in a way that makes sense. Now, telling them is one thing, but asking them is even more powerful. See, if I tell you, you can feel I'm selling you, persuading you, influencing you. But if I ask you a question where you tell me, you own it. It's exactly what happens at Zappos when they take people for the first week, no matter what position they have, and they put them through an immersion, right? They put them through boot camp. And at the end of that week, what do they do with those people? Do you remember? They offer them what? $2,000 to leave. Right now, $2,000 to leave. Now that makes these people, see, instead of Zappos selling you more on We're the Best Culture, they gave them enough information, enough experience to hopefully get a good hit. But now it's the ultimate piece. I have to ask myself, am I on board or not? If I ask you, you might even be asking me, oh yeah, I'm ready to go. But for me to give up that money, I gotta say, is this worth it? Is this worth more than $2,000? Is this the place I'm gonna stay? Is this, and I gotta ask all those questions. And then once I answer them, and I've answered them, I'm in. How many follow the difference here? Say I. This is a really, really powerful distinction. Instead of telling, you can tell, but ultimately you gotta ask the question that brings someone there. So if you've ever watched me with somebody who's suicidal, or somebody's having a major challenge, or somebody's happy and wants to go to another level, I'll tell stories, I'll do examples, but ultimately the moments of influence happen at moments when I ask questions. And they make this connection in their head. And I'll say, if you continue with this, tell me how that's gonna meet your dream. I did this with my daughter, I'll never forget. My daughter Jolie always wanted to be a dancer on Broadway. And she was very talented. Of course, I'm her father, right? So of course she's talented, right? But at one point, she's going to college and doing really well. She's based in Los Angeles, and she was winning all these dance competitions, and she came home for Christmas, and we're sitting down, and I said to her this question. I said, honey, how are you doing on your dream? And she said, what do you mean? She goes, I'm doing great in school. I got straight A's, and I'm going to dance classes. I said, I know, but I want to know, how are you doing on your dream? I didn't tell her how she was doing on her dream. You follow the difference here? I could say, Jolie, I'm concerned. You got straight A's in school, and you're doing great in dance classes, but you're not focusing on your dream, or I don't think your dream's coming about. If I start out with that, it wouldn't work. I got to ask. I got to make her break her own what? Break her what? Pattern. She goes, well, what do you mean? I said, your dream, you know what it is. What is it? Well, she goes, well, of course, the dance on Broadway. I said, uh-huh. And what are you doing? She goes, well, I'm going to school. I got straight A's, and I'm dancing. I said, are you dancing against people you're better than, or people that are better than you? What do you think her answer was? I'm better than them. I said, of course, because you're winning every time. That's a clue. So my question is, how do you get better playing against people you're better than? If you go out on a tennis court and you play against somebody that's twice as good as you are, even if you're a lousy tennis player, are you going to get better or worse playing against them as time goes by? Which one? You have to, just to stay on the court. If you sit across from somebody whose skill set is lower than yours, even though you want to practice as hard as you can, what's going to happen to your game eventually? It's going to go down. And you can just watch her process this. Now, if I said to her, you need to leave California, move to New York, and compete with other people, that probably wouldn't work too well. But I started out with, how you doing on your dream? And then I got her to say, what is your dream really? And I knew what the answer was. By the way, the best way to influence people, if you're trying to serve them, is you better know what you want to take them towards. As a leader, I got to know where I'm going to take you. That's my job. If you're a parent and you're not leading, your kid's leading you, you're not much of a parent. That doesn't mean your kids can't inform you, but there are points in life where you got to be able to lead them. And you can lead anyone wherever you want as long as you know where the outcome is and you ask the right questions. I could take a deck of cards, have you take out any card, see what the card is, and I can lead you that card. You take out, for example, the Ace of Hearts, the King of Hearts. And I say to you, well, let me ask you a question. A deck of cards has 52 cards in it, but they're broken up into 4 different suits, aren't they? What are they? Spades. What are they? Come on. Yeah. So as you think of those, pick one. Hearts. And some of you won't pick hearts, so I'll say, pick another one. And if you only go down, I'll say, if you ask everything, I'll say, and that leaves until we finally get to hearts. Right? And then I'll say, of those hearts, there's one that's valued more than the other one. What one is it? I mean, I can lead you wherever I want. I'm going to get you to say the King of Hearts or the I'm going to take you wherever I want to go with questions, but I better know first. So I say to her, by competing with these people who you're better than, because you told me you're better than them, so I'm not saying it, she's saying it, are you going to get better? What happens in these moments? She's making new connections in her head, new nuances, new beliefs. And she says, well, no, I'm not. I said, let me ask you another question. What's the life cycle on a dancer? I mean, can you be a dancer when you're 40, start when you're 40, 35, make it on Broadway? She goes, no. I said, how old are you? She goes, what do you mean? You know who I am. But I said, oh, just how old are you now? She said, well, I'm 21. I said, when would now be a good time for you to start? Now? Oh, yeah, it's a good idea. She said, what do you mean? And I said, honey, everything I've done in my life has been based on modeling, but also there's something in me that most people don't realize has really made me successful, and that's a sense of urgency. I do not settle. I do not wait. You wait and it's over. If you allow something to distract you, at the moment you're about to get the most important information you need in your life. What do you think the price is? And I said, no, it's called utilization. By the way, I will tell you this aside. One of the greatest skills in your life as an influencer is I call utilization, which is whatever happens, use it. That's the greatest gift you can give yourself in business and life. Whatever happens, use it. If you're aware that whatever happens is always an asset to your outcome, if you have the belief it's always an asset, I just need to know how to use it, then everything in life plays to you. It might be another metaphor what Tony from Zappos talked about when he had those people take the test, say, am I lucky, extremely lucky to unlucky? Remember that? And ironically, the people that think they're extremely lucky have a different life. They have a different life because they utilize everything. They see everything as to their advantage. Anyway, with my daughter, basically what I said to her was, honey, I want you to get, you think I'm a genius. And I said, and I am. But I said, my deepest genius is urgency. I am one hungry mofo. I will not let an opportunity pass me by. I will not see something that's possible and go, well, I'll try that later. I grab it. I grab it right then by the hair. I crush it. I go after it. It isn't just talent. You know, how many talented people do you know who have unbelievable talent, but they never lived their dream? How many people you know that are brilliant and are depressed? How many people you know that have up-to degrees in education but can't fight their way out of a paper bag? By the way, you're all answering those questions. You don't have to answer them out loud. I usually, in an audience, invite them to answer that out loud because it creates momentum and energy and keeps your energy high. But I don't have to use that style. I could use anybody's style as long as I ask the questions. The answers are going to show up, aren't they? And even if you say no, that's still an answer, isn't it? So I said to her, honey, I said, is this making sense? She goes, yeah, but what are you proposing? And now she's open. How many follow? Right? Because she now believes I've got to do something. If I stay on this path, it's not going to happen. There's not enough time. I'm 21 years old. I said, well, honey, how have I ever succeeded? What have you seen me do? What is the secret to me compressing decades in a day? She goes, modeling. I said, that's right. I find the best in the best. I won't settle until I find the very best. Not somebody good, somebody who's the very best. And I go figure out everything they do so I can compress decades into days. You need to go model or work with the best person in your industry in the world who happens to be in New York. And you need to train with them. And it's not enough to model somebody. You got to take massive what, my friends? Massive what? You can come here and model all the people here, but if you don't do anything with it, it's over. It's not going to happen. So I said, you got to take massive action. She says, well, what are you proposing? I say, leave school, move to New York, go into training. I will pay for the training as long as you have a full-time job paying for your housing. Because I want you to be a working actress, and as long as you're going on auditions. You can't just go train and work. You have to find a way for auditions too. You do that, I'll pay for you to be able to go there. I'll pay for your training, you pay for your housing. So that's really scary. That's a lot. That's a lot. When would I do this? She goes, I'm in the middle of school. I said, when would now be a good time? She goes, you mean like right now? I said, what do you think? She says, in the middle of the school year? I said, yes. She said, but you're the one who told me to go to college. I said, I was wrong. I said I wasn't wrong about college. I'm glad you're going to college. You got straight A's, and you can go back and do that later. You're not going to run out of time to go to college. You're not going to lose any of your credits. But you're running out of time to become a dancer. I said, I don't know if you're that skilled. I think you're gifted, but I'm your father. Of course I think you're gifted. You could be ugly. I still think you're beautiful. You actually were when you were born, kind of like a lizard. I still thought you were cool. Right? So I said, the only way we're going to know is if you get in it. Because I said, there's one emotion I don't ever want you to have in your life, my girl, and that's regret. That's an emotion I don't want you to ever have. That's up to you, but if I can help you from not having it, that's what I'm talking to you right now. And if you don't take this shot now, you tell me what level of regret you might have later in life. She goes, wow. Right here, right in the middle of school, right in the middle of Christmas vacation. So guess what? She said to me, do you mind if I ask anybody else their opinion? Sure, people pay me $1 million a year for me to coach them. But you should frickin' ask somebody else what they think. Not a problem. Who are you thinking of? And she said, no, Dad. She goes, of course I respect your opinion, but you've always taught me to go to the area where there's the greatest expert. And she said, the greatest experts are people in the business. I said, you're right. Who are you thinking of? And she said, well, I was thinking of so-and-so, this gentleman who's at CAA, who was a good friend of mine, and she knew him. He's one of the top guys at CAA. And I said, he's actually a brilliant idea. I said, that's smart of you to do that. Check it out. She goes, okay, I will. I said, when? She said, now would be a good time? Now would be a good time. So she literally went in the other room, and as she goes to the other room, he's one of my friends. I call him right then and there while he's doing it. True story. I said, look, I just talked to Jolie. I only have 30 seconds. Talk to Jolie. Here's the deal. You know this. She's here, straight A's, da-da-da. I said, I told her to go to New York because that's where dancing is, and she needs to be in proximity, doesn't she? Proximity is power. He goes, Tony, you're absolutely right. I said, if it's not right, tell her it's not right. Is it right? It's right. Tell her that. Bye. No exaggeration. She walks in 3 minutes later and says, the line's busy. I left a voicemail. So I said, honey, don't leave a voicemail. Call back again. You know him. He's on the line all the time. She always calls him. Long story short and true story, she talks to him on the phone. He talks to her for like an hour and a half. She comes back a couple hours later. God, Dad, I had the greatest conversation. It was the right thing to do. And he says it's absolutely right. And we talked about why and how and all those things. And so I said, okay, great. I said, you can't be a prophet in your own land, I guess, around here. But I looked at her and said, Father knows best. She laughed. We laughed about it. So I took my little sunshine girl who was used to living in Southern California and going to the beach, right? I took her to New York during one of the worst winters New York had had in like 15 years and put her in this crappy little apartment deliberately because I wanted her to be hungry, right? And sure enough, she went and she trained with some unbelievable people and she kept going on these things. And less than 6 months later, she called me up at one time and she said, Dad, she goes, I have a little surprise for you. When you come to New York? And I told her and she said, okay, well, I want to pick you up from the airport. Sure enough, I get to the airport. She's not there, but there's a car there for me. A little note. I said, Dad, I just have a little surprise. And so I'm okay. So I get in the car and I'm excited to see my daughter. And the car drives by her apartment and we go down to downtown Broadway. They pull up in front of a place and there's a play called Tommy, if you remember that classic play, right? And on the headlines, I see my daughter's name. Within 6 months, she was on Broadway. The whole thing happened just from that process, ladies and gentlemen. It was really great. Influence is the game. You must lead your children, you must lead yourself, you must lead your business, which means you can lay down law, foundation, principles, distinctions, you can tell stories, you can give examples, but ultimately you must ask for the order. You must ask for the action. And you must ask in a way where they're already convinced because they know it's right inside of them, not because of the power of your personality. Because the power of your personality will go away. But see, when I went away, she already owned all this. How many follow the difference here? Say I. Plus, you'll learn a lot. You'll learn. You'll find out I'm trying to influence, do something, may not be right. Maybe the better thing is some mixture between what I thought and they thought. You'll find that by asking questions. You can't just ask questions where you're only trying to get to the outcome. You got to have the overall outcome, and you got to be open to what's happening as feedback along the way. And you got to know what people need: certainty, variety, significance, connection and love, growth, contribution. And you got to know which one of those they value most to get their attention. You got to start with what they value, not what you value. See, most people think influencing someone is getting them to do something. Well, if I said to somebody here, okay, I'll give $1 million to the first person up here who's naked within the next 15 seconds, trust me, that's not influence. Any idiot could pull that off. That's a bribe. And that's what some of you do with the people you manage. You try to bribe them, and you go, look how well they're doing for a while until that gets old. Till being naked gets old or $1 million gets old. $1 million gets old. Who knows what I'm talking about here? Yeah, some of you in this room know $1 million isn't squat. Whatever you're around, you get familiar with, it loses its intangible quality. So you got to be constantly thinking this game about how to meet these people's needs, and you got to use questions to do it. Who else do you got to ask quality questions of, my friends? Who? Ourselves. If you want to get yourself in state every day, what are you going to do? Feed your mind? What are you going to do? Condition your body? What are you going to do? Ask better. Not, how am I going to survive this economic downturn? That kind of question, you're going to feel like hell, and you're going to do like hell. Because that's going to put you in a state where you're not going to come up with any answers. So what are some of those questions? Well, in my own life, I learned to ask questions that were very helpful to me. I learned just to go, instead of saying, I'll give you an example. I remember I was on the road. I'd been 120 days in a row on the road. 100 of those days I'd been on a stage. My voice was gone. My body was gone. Because most of the things I do are not like this, where it's you guys are sitting in chairs and it's casual and talking for a few hours. Here's a 50-hour day, weekends. Bam, 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 bam. And then the full time in between, and then flying 12 hours. Crazy. And I got home, and I was burnt out. I was physically burnt out. And I got home, and the first day I was home, I had 100 and something phone calls. Now, this is obviously the days before email, because I thought 100 phone calls was really just horrific. Right? I was like, 100 phone calls, and these were the questions I asked myself. I was like, what the hell is the matter with my life? How did I end up in this pit? By the way, I was living in a 10,000 square foot castle overlooking the ocean in Del Mar, California, while I was saying this to myself. But can you hypnotize yourself with questions, yes or no? Questions have presuppositions, like the man who came the other day and said, well, how can I do this when it's impossible? That's basically what he said to me. He said, how can I double my business when, no one is buying anything anymore? Well, if you ask a question built with a negative presupposition, you're in pain. You asked a better question. So I said to him, is there any other person you could sell to? Is there any other service you could create? Is there any other market that exists in the world? You get new answers when you ask new, but we ask the same questions over and over again. So I'm going, why did this happen to me? And why do I have to respond to all these people? But then what I did is I realized to change my state. I went and drank some water. I was dehydrated. Shook my body out, said, what I'm going to do first? I'm going to just go for a little run. Went for the run, got my body changed, and the state changed. New focus came with new questions. I started thinking, you know what? I would have died to have some of these people call me, 4 or 5 years ago. One of them was the President of the United States on that list. Another was a guy who's now one of my dearest friends that I remember I used to be a fan of this man. He's just a genius of a man. And now he's one of my best friends. And so I asked myself, how did I get so lucky to get these people in my life? How did I get so lucky to have 100 people want to talk to me in a day? There was a time I can remember in a 400 square foot bachelor apartment in Venice, California, when I heard the song, I Am, I Said, and no one heard, not even the chair. And I sat there with tears thinking my life had no meaning and I mattered to nothing and no one. Sometimes it's good to ask a question that reminds you that whatever you think is stressful today was something you would have dreamed about at one time in your life. To have a foreground, you need a background. Sometimes it's useful to remember your background. So I asked myself, okay, why do I want to call these people back? Is there a presupposition there, yes or no? What would be great about calling these people back? Well, I said, actually, I want to catch up with Peter. And pretty soon, instead of having to do it, does the state you do something in affect the people you deal with, yes or no? And your state is affected by what you focus on. And what you focus on is controlled by questions. So then I thought, a better question. I said, how can I make all 100 of these phone calls and enjoy the process? Because for me, it meant sitting down, being all crunched up, going in there, talking, not breathing, not eating, not anything, 100 calls, right? And I looked out the window as I saw that outside. It was a sunny, beautiful day, and there was sitting my swimming pool and jacuzzi overlooking the ocean. And I said, I'm calling everybody from the jacuzzi. Because I asked a better question. How could I make these calls and totally enjoy the process? I didn't get the answer. So if you keep asking, that's the secret. Ask and you shall. But you got to ask consistently, and you got to ask from a state of certainty. Not like, well, what do I do? You know, that's not going to do. I said, how can I make this call and totally enjoy it? I went, I'm going to call from the freaking jacuzzi overlooking the ocean. If I wasn't making the calls, that's where I'd be. So why wait? So I took my little list down. I got not my cell phone, but my little extender phone out, right? And I sat in that swimming pool and talked and laughed. And I remember why I was calling everybody. And before I called them, I thought about all the things that we'd done together or what was cool I wanted to share with them. And I made all the calls. I didn't reach everybody, nobody was reachable, but I made all the calls I could possibly make. And I was in that jacuzzi for about 3 hours, and they came out like I looked like I was 4,000 years old. But I was so relaxed, and I had the best time, and all the calls got made just because I asked a better what? If you want to influence somebody, ask a better question. That's the whole game. If you have a problem, people tell me all the time, I have a problem with that. And I say, what's your question? Because all you're saying when you have a problem is there's a question that you have that's not been answered. Problems are really questions that have not been answered. But when you state them not as a question, you forget that you're after an answer. So, tell me your problem in your business, sir. Funding. What's your question? What's your question? Because by the way, when you go, my problem is funding, guess what you got? Now you have a problem. It's yours. You get to hang on to it. You get to label it my effing problem. You get to show people your problem. You get to talk about your problem, but nothing changes. Nothing changes until you get an answer to what really is going on. What really is, it's a problem because you haven't formed it as a question. If you got the question and you keep asking it, and you ask it with enough certainty, playfulness, creativity, you ask it of the right people, you ask it of enough people, ask and you shall what? Seek and you shall. Now you don't have to be religious. Those are useful terms to remember because it's true. But the problem is still your problem because you haven't formed it as a quality question. You know, say, I got a question. How come I can never get funding? Yeah, that's like somebody says, how come, I can never lose weight? And your brain goes, because you're a pig, right? If you ask a lousy question, you get a lousy. It's true of your customers, true of yourself, true of your clients, true of the people that work with you. So what's your question, sir?
My question is, how can I go out and talk to some people and let them understand what a great investment that bullet hire is?
Okay, give me a hand. That's a nice question. Very nice. And stand up, sir. And now tell me the answer. In fact, tell me 3 answers because I want to show you all something. Problems get solved only when you adopt this philosophy. No more than 5% of my time on the problem. 95% of my time on the solution. In most organizations, if you took the amount of time they spent talking about the frickin' problem and what caused the problem and where the problem came from and who's responsible for the problem and how the problem emerged, is it that ratio, yes or no? No, it's not 5% of the time, is it? It's probably almost reverse. It's usually 70, 80% of the time on the problem. If you're lucky to get 20% on the solution, it's usually 5 or 10% of the time on the solution. I'm talking about core, total focus, where you've crystallized what the question is you need the answer to. And that's where you've been. You've been focused on this thing called a problem, and there is no thing called a problem once you form a question, if it's a quality question. So one thing I used to do in my seminars in the very beginning, in the big seminars, like here, I can mingle amongst you because I can get out and get back out again. But in my big seminars, most of you know I have security. It's not so like I want security. It's because I couldn't physically function. Because once you get to 2, 3, 4, 5,000 people, 10,000 people, there's just too many people. It's overwhelming and people won't let me go and I couldn't function. I couldn't move around. So what I did in the beginning days before I had security is people would run up to me here and they all want to get their question answered. And I got a process in between because I'm running the frickin' thing. And I can't do anything. I can't go to the bathroom. I think that's why I developed bladder control. It's because the break was over and I was still standing there with 20 people, right? So I came up with a plan and I implement this in every company in this room. And I actually thought about this, something we even could implement in our big seminars, even the large seminars would be easy to do as well. People all want me to give them the answer. And I'm happy to give them an answer, my answer, which might be a good answer, might not be, but it's the best one I can give you. But even if I give you the best answer, wouldn't it be better if you came up with the answer? Because I come up with it, a little bit of you is a little annoyed that I had the answer and you didn't. First, you're happy to have the answer. Then later on, you're a little pissy because you went, oh, I could have thought of that answer. I'm doing the show for NBC. It's called Breakthrough with Tony Robbins. And in order to get the show, I show them all these films of people I turn around. You know, I take the impossibles is what I want. The people that have been in therapy for 20 years, or the person who's suicidal, or the relationship that's over. And I just live to take the impossible, make it possible. Now, by the way, in relationships, sometimes it's better for them to be apart. So I don't want to give the impression that we always keep people together because that's not necessarily the goal. But I said, go find some people of your own so you know I didn't get specially good, pick the right person. You will pick anybody and I'll turn them around. And so, sure enough, they went out and found some people. And one of the persons they got was a man who they went to a speech pathologist and said, could you turn somebody around who's stuttering? Who's been doing it for years? Of course, I could do it easily. I said, really? He said, sure. I said, get the worst stutterer you could possibly find, search all pathologists, speech pathologists, find their worst patient. I'll have it in an hour. And they look at me going, really? It's really? So they get me this man. He's been stuttering since he's 2 years old. His name is Rashad. He's a really wonderful soul. About 30 years old. Some of you met Rashad. Some of you know what I'm talking about, right? Some people are clapping. It's because he came to an event. They got to see this man. And so they sent me to see, they brought him to see me. Guy's been stuttering since he's 2. It'd take him like 3 minutes to say his name. He's like this, going like this. And I'm sitting there very patiently, right? Waiting for him to say his name. You can imagine that tempo in my life. So anyway, he finishes his name, and the long story short is, I get him to stop stuttering within 20 minutes, within an hour completely, within 5 hours, because I want to change his whole life, not just stop his stuttering, change everything. And I got him to remember a moment in his life when he started stuttering. And he couldn't remember. I said, what's the earliest memory you have in life? By the way, how am I influencing him right now? Guess who else is starting to search for the earliest memory in their life? So I said to him, what's the earliest memory in your life? And he thought for a while, he was, I don't know. I said, I know you don't know, but if you did, what would it be? And he finally says, I was 2 years old. I was eating cereal with my brother watching cartoons. I said, okay. What was the cereal? Cocoa Puffs. That's not it. I said, what was the cartoon? He said, Rocky and Bullwinkle. And I said to him, didn't Bullwinkle always stutter? And his eyes got like this big. He said, yeah. I said, whenever he was in trouble, he stuttered, and then Rocky came and saved him. He watched this unbelievable transformation. I said, something happened before that day, because whenever someone has locked down that day, you have a memory before it, you've just blocked it. I eventually got him to remember the night before his father had brutally beat his mother. And then he didn't know what to do when he was watching Rocky and Bullwinkle, and he started stuttering. And sure enough, Rocky comes to the rescue. His dad stopped beating his mother because he had to deal with his son stuttering out of control. So unconsciously, he became the problem, so the father had to focus on him instead of beating up his wife/mother. I said, that worked really well for a 2-year-old, Rashad, but not very good for a 30-year-old, Rashad. Does it? Is that what you want? All of it is setting something up and asking the question. Anyway, the transformation was incredible. The next day, the reasons people clapped in the room is, the transformation was amazing. I had him find a part of himself that was like a warrior because he was kind of a beat down guy. And he got up in front of 5,000 people and just took the place. It was like, if NBC had not found him, they thought for sure he was a plant, that I'd done this thing because he looked like an evangelist speaker. And I didn't tell him anything except, I'm probably going to call on you tomorrow. All right, that's all I told him. He took the stage, and then I brought him a Date with Destiny, and I picked him for the most difficult process in Date with Destiny, and no one in the room who wasn't in the first seminar knew, no one could tell he ever stuttered. So the reason I tell you the story, though, is guess what happened at the end? He wrote me a letter to thank me and told me that it was the most incredible experience of his life, but it took him 3 weeks to deal with something, and what was that? And it was that I had cured his stuttering, and he hadn't. That God should have got the credit, not me. And I said, well, I give God all the credit. That's why I sent back. He said, no, but I realized, my wife said, are you crazy? Are you insane? But that's how much we have a need for significance. Some people want to have their problem and keep their problem, even though answers are all around them, because they want to be the one to solve it. Just remember, human needs drive everything. And for him, the need to be significant was very, very high. And if he didn't do it in his belief system, then it wasn't as significant. So even though it was euphoric, he even went back and started stuttering again so he could kind of like have a problem. And so his wife pointed this out to him, and then all of a sudden it became very clear and he shifted. Now I tell you all that, though, to come back to you, which is what I want you to do in a memo, here's your memo. And then I'll ask you. Your memo in the room, what I have people do is instead of coming to me for the answer, because if they came to me for the answer, I give them the answer, and what happens? They like it for a while, and later on, he did it. No, not everybody's that way, don't get me wrong. But I told you the story because some people are Rashad. Their whole life has changed. Everything's more than they could ever dream of, and later on, there's something inside of them pissed off about it. So if I can be part of what helps you, but you do the major work, or you make the final thing, you're going to own it more. So what I would do with people is I'd say, simple. Here's your problem. I want you to write down what the problem is and describe it in 2 sentences max. This is your memo. 2 sentences, crystal clear that anybody will understand it. If you have to write more than 2 sentences, you have to tell them a paragraph, the question doesn't work. It has to be maximum of 2 sentences, ideally 1, so crystal clear anybody can understand it. That's number 1. So you write that down. You write down, define the problem with precision. Describe the problem or the request. And sometimes it's not a problem, sometimes it's a request. Can we turn the air conditioning up? Can we turn it down? Can we have lunch at whatever time? Can we do this? Can we do that? Whatever the request may be. So you write it down. Then the second thing I have them do is describe 3 solutions to their request or problems. 3, and I use keywords, 3 cost-effective, intelligent, viable solutions. Might be viable, time viable, resource viable, whatever the case may be, viability. So what are 3 intelligent, practical, viable solutions that you believe we can implement, to solve this, or to meet this need? By the way, why do I have them come up with 3? Someone tell me why. 1 choice is no choice. 2 choices is a dilemma. Until you have 3 choices, you're not at choice. That's my rule in life. You may not like all the choices. Whenever you think you have 1 choice is no choice. If you got 2, you're in a dilemma. There's always at least 3 choices. Plus, I'm making that person become a problem solver. If I solve the problem, they'll just have a new problem for me to solve. But if I can teach them to be a problem solver, the game changes. How many follow? Now, sometimes this is less efficient, but with a mass audience, it was very efficient. And then they turn that in, and then I have a choice. I can now respond back by saying, circle, I accept your request, or I think solve the problem, we'll do it with your number 1. Or I could modify it, I'm willing to do that, but I think we need to do this, and this is the way to do it. Or I could reject it and tell them why. And then we'd have this communication. It was very efficient. This is very different than, tell me what you think we should do in a suggestion box. So now, tell us your question, and then tell us at least 3 answers. Then are quality answers, viable answers.
Okay, the question is, how can I influence people to put in money into my company and help me change the entire recruiting industry?
Wow, give me a hand for that. That's a different question than you had before. Now, sometimes your question has too many outcomes in it simultaneously. Sometimes, I'm going to raise enough money to do this and change the whole recruiting industry. That might be over-chunked. There's two ways to chunk. You can chunk something at 8 million bites and it's overwhelming, or you can try to eat the entire whale with one bite, which is also overwhelming. Too many chunks, you're overwhelmed. Only one big chunk, you're going to be overwhelmed. But I like your question. What's the essence of your question, though? What's the burning part of your question? What's the one that's most burning? In that question, tell me one more time, what is your deepest question right now?
My deepest question is, how do I get the funding I need to put in place to hire the right people, to implement the right marketing and sales activities, to continue to have the resources to do what my company does, that I can bring this to the rest of the world.
So you see, it's getting better, but he's still making it over chunk. How much money do you need to do that?
About 1.5 M.
And do you have a clear, specific plan?
Yes, I do.
And does it have a track record that you can manage?
Yes, I do.
And do you have management that people who are investors would say their participation would significantly reduce my risk?
Yes.
Then what's your answer? Give me three. Give me three clear answers that are viable, intelligent, practical, and you could act on immediately.
Go on Twitter. Ask who wants to change the whole recruiting industry and make it simple and easy for any hiring manager, for any job seeker to apply for positions. And by the way, you can make $1 million in 3 to 4 years.
That won't work on Twitter. There's only 140 characters.
Okay, who would like, the answer is go to Twitter and ask the question of who wants to change the recruiting industry, and I can show them how it can be done, and if they can be a part of this and also make $1 million.
Okay, so that's one approach. Go to a medium online, Twitter might be one example, where I could get people's eyeballs and make a request where it's very compelling, both in a sense of transformation and economic return. How many follow? Okay, give me another answer.
Go out to my personal network and just start talking to people and showing them what my system does and what the growth potential and our management team, and then ask them to be a part of it.
Great. What's the third answer?
Continue to talk to venture capitalists and continue to tell the story to them about how we're progressing.
Great. And I bet you could come up with 3 more right now if I asked you to, couldn't you?
Most likely.
Yes. So what do you feel right now differently than a few moments ago, if anything?
I know I can make this happen.
That's right. Give him a hand, first of all, for that right now. That's the process. Why? Why? Why do you know?
Because I've been in this industry for so long. I know where all the holes are. I know how companies waste a bazillion amount of millions of dollars a year. I know how inefficient the recruiting process is. I know how laborious it is. And our system takes about 80% of that and completely wipes it away.
Great. Now I want you to notice something. Clarity is power. By making himself be more clear, be more brief, be more precise in the form of a real question that's actionable, and then just demanding an answer in a state of certainty, he's got them. But most of us don't have this as a discipline. So let me offer you 2 in the form of 4 questions. First, give him a hand. Thank you very much. Problem-solving questions. So here, let me give you 6 questions, problem-solving questions. The first question I ask when a problem comes up, the most important question, is not what the F, not why did this happen to me, not who screwed who to make this happen. The first question is, what's great about this, or what can I learn from this? Immediately, it's like, what's great about this? What's great about this? The first question I tend to ask is, what's great about this? Now, by the way, the answer I often get initially is, what do you think? Nothing. Because if you're in a lousy state, you go, what's great about this? Your brain's going to go, nothing, you idiot. And I go, I know it looks like nothing, but if there was something great about it, what's great about this? And I demand the answer. By the way, seek and you shall what? Ask and you shall. And I don't care who it is, if you ask with authority and certainty, you get an answer. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine came to see me one time, years ago. He was at his wit's end. He was a lawyer, and he had been in partnership with another lawyer, a friend of his, for, I don't know, 12, 14, 15 years. Let's say 15 years rounded up. And one day, the partner of his had a midlife crisis and decided he didn't want the pressure of being a partner in the firm, and he quit the firm. He just announced to his 15-year partner, I'm out. I'm moving out. I'm moving away. I'm getting a divorce. I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. I'm out. I'm leaving the firm. And now he's got reputation, money, overhead, all this stuff tied to him. So he comes to me, he says, Tony, I can't handle this. I can't take on his cases. It's going to hurt our reputation. I don't have anybody else I can bring in here. We're both still in the building phase in this firm. Without him, also with sweat equity in this thing, just go hire somebody who can't work. And he is on and on and on and on, and he's pissed off and he's frustrated. And underneath it all, he's scared, really scared. He doesn't know how he can keep the thing together. He can't keep the overhead. And so I let him talk on and on. So I look at him and I say, I just have to ask you a question that you're going to think I look like an idiot. And you're going to say, stop being Tony Robbins. But I can't. It's me. So I have to ask you the Tony Robbins question. He said, what's that? I said, what's great about this? And I said, I know on the surface it's the most absurd question to ask. That's why it's the best question to ask. The best question is often the one everybody else thinks is absurd. Because what everybody else thinks like is why everybody else is stuck, right? You ask the question nobody else would ask. And one of the greatest questions to ask is, what's great about this? But make yourself come up with the answer. If you can't come up with it, change your state and ask it. So I changed the state by saying pussy boy and finally getting him to laugh. First getting him a little pissed off. I don't mind getting somebody pissed off because when they're angry, energy goes through their body. I can take anger and convert it into something else that's different than defeated. Does that make sense? You know, so I get him angry and then a little playful, and finally he goes, well, I said, look me in the eye and tell me you loved your partner and wanted to be with him forever. Tell me you wanted to have sex with him. Come on, tell me. You know, so what am I doing? Breaking his what? So once I break his pattern enough, he goes, honestly, he said he's been a pain in the ass for the last 8 years. I said, what's great about this? He said, what's great about this is it makes me no longer settle for the wrong partner. And when he got that, it changed the meaning and it changed the game instantly just by answering this question. How many follow this? Say aye. What I've been endeavoring to do, and what Chet and all of us have been endeavoring to do this week, is give you the answer to the question of what's great about this economy. How many starting to get what's great about it now? Say aye. Because now you have the ultimate advantage when you look forward to recession. When you look forward to it, not just not being harsh, we're just like, yeah, give me the recession, baby, give it to me. When you can do that, it's not some fake positive thinking, rah-rah BS, but it's based on intelligence that says there's no greater opportunity than now for me to be able to build my business where the costs are lower and the opportunity is greater. There's never been a time, if I can just keep my wits about me, be strong, be intelligent, keep focused, apply some of these disciplines. How many agree? Say aye. So we've been trying to answer that question for you without saying it to you. Because once you get that answer, the game changes. So sure enough, I ask him, okay, what's great about this? And he starts, what else is great about it? I don't let him tell me one thing, because what makes things stick is stacking. One after another after another. What else is great about this? He goes, well, I don't have to settle for the wrong partner anymore. He said, also, I can't really afford this location, and I don't really like where our office is. Where we are is 1,000,000 miles away from my house. So now I would have been stuck here because he lives near here and I'd never want to push him. I'd be stuck here for the next 5, 10 years driving with worse and worse traffic. You know what? I could get my office. I have to finish the lease, but I could then move to the beach. I got an office looking over the ocean. I love the ocean. Now, by the way, what do you think's happening to his state? Okay, I'm not stuck with that bastard anymore. I used to be upset with leaving. And I'm not stuck in this location. Oh, wow. Okay, what else? What else? He said, well, I don't know. What else is great is it's going to make me grow. It's going to make me get out of my box. It's going to make me, and when I get enough of these things to state change, I go to the next question. I said, okay, what can you learn from this? He said, I can learn to never settle again because I knew in the beginning he was wrong. Good lesson. What else can you learn from this? That I've avoided confrontation and given up a great amount of the juice and freedom of my life, and I won't do that anymore. Wow. By the way, is this now really a gift of an experience? Yes or no? We're getting into some real deep stuff, just asking a couple questions. So what's great about this? Would I learn this? I said, okay, here's a great question. What's not perfect yet? What does that presuppose, my friends, when I say what's not perfect yet? That it's going to be what? Perfect. That's different than if you go, well, how will I survive? That presupposes you may not. What's not perfect yet? He goes, well, what's wrong is, I said, no, I didn't ask what's wrong. I asked what's not perfect yet. Language creates emotion. So you got to use the right words here. What's not perfect yet? He goes, well, what's not perfect yet is I don't have enough money to cover the monthly overhead without a partner. I said, okay, what else is not perfect yet? What's not perfect yet is I'm not clear about how I could cover his accounts. What else is not perfect yet? We're not doing this in our head, we're writing it down. In your head, you'll go in a circle. Write it down, it has a whole different game, doesn't it? It keeps us from going in a circle. It's right in front of you, you can deal with it. So guess what? We come up with what's not perfect yet. As we're looking at what's not perfect yet, I said, okay, now here's the question. What are you willing to do to make it the way you want it? What are you willing to do to make it the way you want it? He said, what do you mean, what am I willing to do? I'm asking you point blank. See, people that are willing to do anything at all to make it the way they want it, they'll find a way. If all of you in this room think about your business and you think about what you want your business to become, or you think about your life and you think about what you want your life to be like, you think about what it is you say you want, what are you willing to do to make that happen, to get that funding? You tell me. Anything? Because if you can make a list of all things you never would want to have to do to raise that money, and you can look at yourself in the eye and go, I'm willing to do all of these things as much as I hate them, and your gut can do that, I'll tell you what will happen. You'll raise the money and you won't have to do probably 90% of that, but you might have to do 10% of it. But most of you don't ever look at it. You don't realize there's something inside of you you're not willing to do, and you're afraid you might have to, and so you don't do everything that's necessary to raise that money. You go to the 90% and then you go, gosh, I'm not there yet. I know I'm going to get there. You got to get to that point where what are you willing to do? Because if you're not willing, you might say, well, here's what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to, he says to me, I'm willing to take this on and stop. I'm willing to take this on. I think the first thing he said is, I'm willing to take this on and find a way to either grow the firm or shrink it and keep it above the line. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to keep the firm above the line. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it not go broke. I said, well, what else are you willing to do? Well, I'm willing to make it profitable. I'm willing to work extra hours. I'm willing to, if necessary for the next 6 months, double cover cases. I'm willing to call in favors. I'm willing, and we write it all down. How many are following this process? Then there's another question you got to ask yourself that's also very, very, very important, and that is, what am I willing to not do? In other words, I'm willing to do this to make it work. What am I willing not to do to make this the way I want it? What am I willing to do? But then what am I willing not to do to make this the way I want it? And I use this confusing language on purpose to break his what? You're willing to do this, what are you not willing to do? How many follow this? You know, I'm not willing to whine. I'm not willing to become a defeated man over this. Right? I'm not willing to be in a position where I live in fear and stress every day. I don't have to. I can just decide how I want to make it work, and I'm going to make it that way. I'm not willing to make him my excuse for being frustrated every day. That starts to solve the real problem, doesn't it? And then finally, how can I enjoy the process? How can I solve this? How can I create this, but also enjoy it? That was like me going outside in the jacuzzi. How can I enjoy the process? And he said, you know, I could make my son my partner. I said, what? He said, my son is graduating from school, and honestly, there was no space for him here. We couldn't afford to bring him on. But I'm thinking, that's so stupid. I could mentor him. We could be sharing together. He could be in the firm here. If this place was at the beach, he'd want to be there for sure. So would I. And he came up with this whole vision. And in 5 or 6 questions, he went from depressed, overwhelmed, no future, to the life of his dreams is now being created because of this gift that just happened in his life. That's the power of questions. We were at lunch for an hour. But, you know, the minute he got that this was great, what was great about this, the job was 80% done. How many follow us? The minute you go from problem to question, you start to find the solution. Because answers only come from new questions. Now, I did change his what. Well, I asked the question, change his what? And that's what you got to do as well. That's why I said you got to know what does it that influences people. It's the state they're in, and it's their blueprint. The state is the mental, emotional state they're in, which you can change by changing their physiology or their focus. The blueprint is that they're trying to meet these needs. And they have a map. His map was, I'm supposed to have a partner, we're supposed to do this, and supposed to do that, and then that gets me where I want to be. My new truth was, he wants love, he wants significance, he wants certainty, he wants variety, he wants growth, and he wants contribution. I'm going to get him to see that this meets all those needs. But if I tell him that, he'll doubt it. But if I ask him these questions, he'll find it, he'll tell me, and it'll be true. How many follow the difference here? Okay? By the way, who would these questions be really good to ask of? And by the way, can you feel the room right now? What are you feeling right now? How many of you are like in your head really thinking right now, but let me see your head, really, you feel the energy room is very different. Like people inside going like, what is this thing, you know? Could it really be that easy? 6 frickin' questions? But I'll tell you a secret. You must ask these from a great state, and you must make yourself come up with many answers, and you must write them down. A, you must ask them from a great state. So if you're not in a great state, change it. How do you do that? Radical change in your body or your focus or both. 2, you got to ask them from a place of certainty. 3, give multiple answers. Lots of reasons why this is great. Lots of what you've learned from this. Lots of what you're willing to do. Lots of what you're not willing to do anymore in order to have this work. Right? All those pieces. Lots of what you're willing to do to not only get the job done, but enjoy the process. Because if you stack it, you'll own it. Does that make sense? So you can do this with yourself. You can do this with anyone else. This is an ultimate discipline. What will get you in a good state in the morning is if you ask a few good questions. So let me try this for you. Talk to you about what do leaders do? They change organizations by solving problems and maximizing resources. How do they do that? Influence. How do they influence? First, you got to influence whom? Before you influence anybody else. To touch someone else, you must be touched. To move somebody else, you must be moved. How do you do that? Start by feeding your mind from now on. Feed it something strong, something alive. Consistently have a ritual that feeds your mind. Because if you let what's going on now buzzing in your pocket, on your computer screen, flashing on the television, we both know, all of us know, it's not going to empower you for the most part. That's not to say you shouldn't pay attention. You just can't make that the primary dietary input of your life, emotionally, psychologically, and financially. Do you agree with me on this, yes or no? Yes. So find biographies, history, principles, solutions. Spend 95% of your time there. 5% keeps you updated on what other people are experiencing out there. Okay? 2, condition your body. The body affects the mind. 3, ask quality questions. I've given you a whole series here that you can ask to solve any problem. Remember, I don't have a problem. I only have a problem because I haven't found and formed the right question and demanded from myself the right answers or sought the answers. Whenever somebody comes to me and says, I got a problem with what you said, I'll say, that means you have a question about what I said. What's your question? See, as long as it's formed as a problem, there's no way to solve it. You can't solve a problem that somebody else owns, but you can answer a question. We could answer a question together, couldn't we? That's how you solve things. Form it as a question. Then I've given you 6 questions you can ask, and you can just get in the habit of these. Get them in your body, put them on a card, put them in your book, put them wherever it is you carry with you, your computer, your phone, and to glance at them after a while. Just, okay, time to solve the problem. Look down, ask the question, ask the question, ask the question. Ideally, though, write down the answers. It'll be more powerful if you write it down by 5-fold. If for some reason you can't write it down, at least do it mentally. But demand the answer in a strong state and stack it. Now, you can also get other people to do it by creating a memo system or something like that. You can also do it by having a new discipline. In the company, there are no problems, there's just questions. So what's the question we've got to answer? Let's form the question effectively. Let's all work on the answer together. Now, another question you might have, you might ask yourself, well, how do you change somebody's state? Just ask the right question. If you ask some people, how's it going? Wrong question. Yeah, how's business for you? Is that a good question to ask most people right now? No. But if I were to ask you right now, all of you in this room, honestly and sincerely, tell me something. If you were to be honest about this, and you weren't, feigning that, you didn't want to look like you're being immodest. You're just being truthful. I bet there's some aspect of your life, something in your life, many things that you've done in your life over the course of your life that you're proud of, or that you could be proud of if you just let yourself and didn't think it was improper to be proud. What's something in your life you're really proud of? Really proud of? That if you were to really stop and focus on it and take the time to appreciate it, make you feel damn proud. Proud of who you are, proud of someone in your life that you've touched or influenced, proud of something you've accomplished. That if you were to forget everything else and just really focus on this, you could feel damn proud right now. How many can think of something you could be really proud of? Let me see your hands. Say I. What about that are you proud of? What's it about that makes you feel proud? How does it feel when you're really proud? How do you feel right now when you're proud? Tell me something. If you really wanted to, what could you be excited about in your life right now? If you wanted to be excited, and I know you don't have to be, but if you really wanted to be excited, sincerely, and you want to be excited about your life, and you were just to focus on this, it would excite you. You'd be so excited about this aspect of your life, or this thing in your life. I mean, honestly, you could get worked up real quick. You start to think about it. What could you really be excited about in your life right now? How many can think of something you'd be excited about? Raise your hand, say I. What about that excites you? Just say it out loud. What about that excites you? What else about that excites you? How does it feel when you're excited? How many feel different right now than just a few moments ago? What are you grateful for? If you wanted to be grateful right now, what could you feel grateful for? If you were really grateful, like you felt like you really reconnected to how lucky you are, that most of what you have in your life that you've worked your tail off for, truthfully, you could have worked just as hard growing up in Somalia and you'd have nothing. You might even be dead or damaged by a mine you stepped on. When you really realize the ultimate gift of even where you were born and who you were born around, or the environment, or even the time in history in which you were born, the moment we are in our life right now, or somebody in your life you're so grateful for. I mean, real gratitude, like almost overwhelming gratitude. To realize that your life has truly been blessed even though you've forgotten it at times. What could you feel blessed by? What could you feel grateful for? How many can think of something you're really grateful for, or someone you're really grateful for? How do you breathe when you're grateful? What's the look on your face when you're really grateful? What about that makes you feel so grateful? What about that makes you feel so grateful? How does it feel when you're grateful? Make a sound, whatever sound that would be of gratitude. Make the sound of gratitude. Just instinctively go. Who do you love? Who loves you? Who do you really love? Say no one. Do you have a dog? Does a dog love you? Get a dog, don't get a cat. Cats are independent. Dogs, you leave for 2 minutes like you've been gone for 6 months. They're so excited. Yeah. Who do you love? Who loves you? What about that person do you love? What about you do they love? I have no clue. How does it feel when you're in love? With life, with a person? How many feel very different right now than a few moments ago? Raise your hand. And why? Why do you feel this way? Because whatever you focus on, you will feel, my friends. And if I want to give you a gift, the greatest gift I can give you is ask the right question. A question that will direct you. And notice I didn't tell you anything for the last 4 or 5 minutes. All I did was ask you questions. But how does it feel? And guess what? Everyone has questions. All you got to do is get a little curious again. Get curious. Get back into a state of wonder. You'll have all the questions you've ever wanted. How many questions can kids ask? Too many. Right? Get back in that state. So let me ask one more question and answer it, and I'll wrap up with this. Many of you have said, how do I influence people when I'm speaking from the front of the room? I've heard several people come up and say, how do I do an effective speech? So that's a nice question. Let me offer you an answer. Because the question is not so much what you're going to say. When I get up to speak, this is why time fluctuates with me. Often I'll have a plan, but the plan disappears because I go into a state, but I know the outcome. And so I rotate, move, change to what the outcome is to make sure I get to that outcome. And so I've made enough deposits in my mental, emotional bank account that I have lots of good things I can say. Lots. On lots of different areas. But what I need to see is what's needed. So I go in with like overall what's needed, and then I find my way there, because along the way, I do have a format though that at least guides me. And the format will be helpful. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I know the format of what I'm going to say, and ironically enough, I'll make it another mixed metaphor. I'll use one you've already got. If I want to score, produce the result, which for me, I don't get up to give a speech ever. The only time I get up to speak, if I'm going to get up and speak in public, is for one purpose and one purpose only, to influence people to do something that makes the quality of their life and others better. That is my passion. I would be a crappy speaker speaking about wine. I just would be, because I don't know anything about wine and I'm not passionate about wine. But talking about something you're passionate about, anyone could be a great speaker about, because you don't have to think about what to say. It's in you. So I know what I'm about, but I do still have the intelligence to know there is a format if I'm going to do something effectively, which is to influence somebody. Anybody can get up and do a speech and get people to clap. The real question is, can you change the way somebody thinks? Can you shift what they feel? Can you get them to take some action? Can you get them to make a decision? Can you get them to move? To me, that's the criteria I'm looking for. So if you're looking for coaching on speaking, I'm the wrong guy, because I'm not a good speaker. In fact, I won Toastmasters gavel of greatest speaker of the decade, and I got up and I said, I don't deserve this, and I'm not feigning, like modesty here. I said, I can't get up and do a 10 or 30-minute talk like you guys. You're much more efficient and effective than I am, but I am not a speaker. I'm an influencer. I'm a communicator. And if you can get in your mind, don't have to be a speaker, all I got to do is communicate what I believe in, and then do this, what I'm about to show you. I'll give you a format to think about. I won't put it up on the screen, but I'll give you this. Imagine it's a mixed metaphor. I'm trying to get down the field to score a touchdown. Here, I'm just starting the game. Here is my touchdown. And the next metaphor is a funnel, where I'm going to get someone, where I'm going to influence them more and more until we finally get them where we want them to go, a place that's going to enhance their life. In your case, it's your product, your service, coming to work for your company, whatever. 40 yards of getting that touchdown, I call identification. ID, identification. It really, what I'm doing in this stage is getting people, and myself and other people, to connect. And the way I do that is I want someone to say, me too, not so what. Me too, not so what. So if I get up here, excuse me, and I start out, and I get up to speak, let's say it's a seminar is a perfect example, and I get up to talk, and I say, well, let me tell you all the things that I've achieved in my life. I've done this, and I've accomplished that, and I've made this happen, I've done that, and I've done this, and I've done that, and I've done this, and I've done that, and I've done this. What happens in people's head after just a short period of time? What's the first thing they're going to be saying? So what? So guess what? They're not in my funnel. They get in my funnel the minute I get them to say, me too, several times. So if you ever came to an event with me in the beginning portion, I'll say, look, I know you're here, I respect you, I'll think about it. It's different every time. I think about why people are there. I think about why I respect and love them. I think about what it is that is unique about my audience. I do my homework on my audience. And then when I go in there, I already have this affection for them before they walk in. I don't just think of you as a group. I think of these different personalities that are here that I'm here to serve. So I'm in state. And then the first thing I do is identify and connect with them by talking usually about some screw up or some problem. Or I'll say, you're all sitting here and, in the very beginning here, you might be wondering, what have I got myself into? I'll mind read. Or I'll say, you might be sitting there thinking, man, this guy's got big teeth, and you'll laugh and go, oh, he realizes he's a big dude with big teeth, Or I can remember when Diane Sawyer came to interview me when I was like 30 years old. And I had a lot of people that in the beginning, the media was all positive. I was this young, great guy. But if you don't change the story, the media will do it for you because they get bored telling the same story. So Madonna figured this out and keeps changing personalities for like 30 years. Because if she didn't do it, the media would do it to her, right? So bottom line is, I didn't understand this, and I finally got smart. And so Diane Sawyer sits down with me. Early in the conversation, I said to her, she said, so you're the most successful infomercials of all time. And I said, yeah. I said, it's embarrassing, isn't it? And she looked at me. She goes, you think it's embarrassing? I said, it's embarrassing. I'm between the Floby moth and the spray-on hair. I mean, oh my God. I said, how I'm able to reach anybody is a miracle. And she goes, you think they're stupid too? I said, of course I do. I said, you think I'd like to be on infomercials? But I said, look, I wanted to reach the world and there was no platform for me. How would I do that? I'm not a preacher and I don't want to be. And I didn't want to go just, do books. So I had to find another way to reach people. And these silly infomercials have got me in front of millions and millions of people. So I said, they're a pain, but they also have opened the door. She goes, wow, that's great. So as soon as she got to see he thinks it's stupid too, she and I bonded like that, identification. And then we bonded with 4 or 5 things. That was 40% of my influence of her. Was getting her to say, this guy's just like me. The person who comes and tries to impress everybody, it's not bad to have some things that are impressive also, but if you're too impressed with your own things, you're in trouble. Because people are going to say, so what? But if you can say, damn, I'm telling you this, and there's a phrase I use because I had to find a way to share it, but I said, I'm telling you this not because, I'm not trying to impress you, but it impresses me, and people laugh because they go, oh, he gets it. He gets it. What you can do in this area is I mind read. I'll be in an event I'll never forget, and these people are really pissed off and everything else, and I said, a lot of people here I know are probably thinking, what the hell is this white boy? It's an all African-American audience. What the hell is this white boy doing here lecturing us? And they couldn't believe I'd say that. He probably never played basketball in his life. I said, you'd be wrong. I did something for them to go, I like this guy. There's something about him that's like me. He's gutsy or he's crazy or, well, he's just a real guy. This is the majority of what you got to have to influence somebody if you're going to influence a group of people. Me too, not so what. Now, if that's 40 yards, 10 more yards get you halfway there. You know what the 10 yards is in influencing? It's logic and reason. Logic and reason, the firewalk, I do that seminar with somebody, the logic and reason, the seminar's 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, whatever the hell it really is. I don't know, I make it up in my head. It's probably more than what I think. But whatever number of hours, people are out of their mind at the end. But you know what? How much of that is the logic and reason how to walk the fire? 5 minutes. Maybe I take 20 minutes to explain it, but it's 5 minutes. I can explain it to you in 5. How to do it, what to do. But see, I got to influence you to do it. See, most of that is getting all the Me Too stuff so you can see, okay, it's not crazy. The logic and reason, how to do it, that's easy. Now I'm halfway there. Now I divide the rest of my talk into 2 parts. And that is the third section from the 50-yard line, 25 more yards in, you're almost there, you're 2/3 way across. This is called attack and confess. Attack and confess is this. If you're going to influence somebody, the best way to do it, very simply is, be in a position where whatever objection someone's going to have to what it is you're trying to influence them to do, you bring it up first. And you attack the problem. You attack the objection by confessing you've been guilty before. So for example, if I knew I was trying to influence somebody to, let's say, master time management in their life, I would say to them at this point, let me just tell you something. It's the most crazy thing in the world. Everybody knows that their time is the most valuable thing they have in their life, right? Everybody that I know wishes they had more time and knows that's not possible. Everybody you know has more to do than they have time for. Everybody knows that they need to get much better at managing their time. But when you try to offer them a tool on how to be able to manage their time, or a seminar or a coaching session, what do you think they say? I don't have the time. Is that the most stupid thing you've ever heard? I mean, think about this. What kind of idiot, and we've all done it at times. I've done this. I've told myself I don't have the time. I've told myself so much time. I've talked to myself so much about I don't have the time. The time I talked about it, I could have got it done. Who can relate to this here? Raise your hand and say aye. Do you agree with me on this, yes or no? Now, try to tell me you don't have time for this thing. You're dead. Because I attacked it. If you had said, Tony, I'd love to do it, but I don't have the time, and now I'm going after you, my attack and the objection will feel like I'm attacking you. But if I bring it up first, and I make how incredibly stupid it is, before you say anything, and you have to agree that it's stupid, I even maybe get you initiated by a question to tell me how stupid it is, and I confess, so you don't feel bad about yourself that I've done this too, but I'm not stupid anymore, any more than you are. Guess what? There's no way you can come back now and tell me I don't have the time. So that's what I do. If it's money, you deal with money the same way, right? Who here in their life didn't have the money for something, but something inside of you wouldn't settle, and you effing found the way. You just were relentless and you found the way. How many have done this before? Say aye. Who here has ever told yourself you didn't have the money and you didn't find the money, and you look back on it later, you know damn well if you just given away that belief system that it wasn't there, you would have found the way. Who's done this before? Say aye. Is the money always there for something we're committed to, yes or no? Who here absolutely knows that's true? Raise your hand. Okay, then none of us can give that excuse anymore. I can't either. Because if I do, I know I'm lying. And I'm not a liar. It wouldn't be lying to say it's difficult. Wouldn't be lying to say I don't know how I'm going to get the money. But to say I can't get the money is the biggest effing lie in the world. And what that does is what? What does it destroy? What does it destroy? Come on, guys, what does it destroy? Everything. Now try to tell me you don't have the money. So the secret is attack and confess. Now, if you just finish with that, it's not enough because that deals with the problem. But the last 24.9999 yards, right on inches from the goal, is if this is attack and confess, this is like the hell if you don't. You got to paint the picture of the hell of what's going to happen if we don't follow through. And the last 24.999 yards, almost 25 yards, is the solution. This is the heaven if you do. This is if you follow through, if you make this thing happen, if you do the things we've talked about here, let me tell you what's going to happen. You know, I putzed around all this time, or I could come back to this one and I could say, I could tell you about John. John put this off. I met him. I told him all this. If he was here today, let me tell you what he would do. I confess for John. John would say to you, don't stop. Don't hold out. Are you crazy? The one thing in your life that's valuable is time. Can you really afford to not implement this? Can you really afford to put this off? You know damn well you can't. And he did for 3 years. And he got divorced, and he did this, and he did that. And I tell you a real story, true story. And your brain's going, hell, hell, hell if I don't, hell if I don't, hell if I don't. But now I got to move into heaven if I do. But let me tell you what. Let me tell you about John who did do it. Or let me tell you what finally happened 3 years later when he finally did. He owned himself. He stopped making excuses. He looked the tiger in the eye. He stepped up and reclaimed everything inside of himself. He felt free again. He just decided, I'm not going to dabble in this crap. I'm going to master it. I'm going to do what's necessary, and it's not that difficult. And he just did one step a day, one step. Next day, another step. Next day, another step. 3 months later, let me tell you where he was. A year later, what time he was. It's been 3 years. Can I tell you what his life's like now? Here's what his relationship's like. Here's what his finances are like. This is what his joy is like. This is where his life is today because he followed through. And then the last inches to go. If you do all this and you don't do the last piece, it's over. And that is, you got to ask for the action. Influence is about asking for the action. If you do everything else, but you don't say, okay, John, let's go, and assume the sale. Okay, John, are you in or you out? Or whatever your is, you must ask for action as the final component. If you don't ask for action, nothing's going to occur. If at any stage here I step out of this sequence, I'm going to be in trouble. If I start at the very beginning trying to tell you the hell if you don't do this, are you going to listen to me? You just met me and I tell you, guess what? Your entire life's going down the hole if you don't do X, Y, and Z. Are you going to be influenced by me, yes or no? Yes or no? No, we need 40 yards of connection, relationship, identification, me too, not so what. It's not just relationship. Here's why it really works. Logic is clean. I need enough reasons that if I don't do it, I got enough pain, and then enough solution and a call to action. This is how I would design your communication of your sales presentation. This is how I design your speech. This is how I would design your interaction on something you're going to develop as a core story. In a core story, what do you want people to say in the very beginning? Me too. They need some logic and reason, they need some pain, and they need some pleasure, and they need a call to action. And every good core story has that if you listen to it. And it's in that sequence. Because if I said the dog bit Johnny versus Johnny bit the dog, same elements, but is it the same experience? Not if you're Johnny, right? So the sequence plays a role. Is this helpful? So you can always say, I'm gonna go communicate a message. First, I gotta connect sincerely. I gotta be able to have people say, me too, not so what. What do we have in common? What can I show where I've screwed up and where I've done well, but how do I get people to identify with me and how do I identify with them? What's the logic and reason? What's the story I'm telling that's sincere and real, but it attacks the problem, it attacks the objection, it attacks the limitation. It attacks the restraint before they bring it up. If you wait till they bring it up, now you're attacking them. How do I attack it? Confess I've been guilty or sincerely confess for someone else. Always be accurate, don't BS. Then I paint the solution, and then I call for action. Okay? So how many have seen my TED Talk? Okay? So I did this talk. This man, I go to meet him, and I didn't want to come for an 18-minute talk, but I came because some friends said, please come, do this. So I'm doing it as a gift. And I go up and he's going to meet him. I said, I understand that, you own TED now. And he says, yes, oh, you're Tony Robbins. This is how our relationship started with Chris. I said, yes. He goes, oh, you're that motivator? I said, yes, actually I am. But that's not how I look at myself. I said, you could call me that. I said, actually, I'm more of a coach, and if I inspire people as a part of that, that's nice, but that's not the essence. I'm more a strategist. But he wasn't listening, so I just shut up. I was wasting my breath. He decided who I was. So I said, listen, I'm just really grateful to be here, and I'm looking forward to doing a good job for you. He says, make sure you don't do that jumping thing with people. I said, okay, great. Don't change the physiology, too. Great. 18 minutes, don't change the physiology. Okay, great. And then he said, well, he introduced me. They had somebody on right before, and the energy in the room was through the floor. Because the person was talking about something complex and, it was difficult. It wasn't a bad speaker, just you don't teach string theory in 18 minutes. It was something like that. And he gets up and he goes, well, the energy was really there. He goes, well, now we have Mr. Motivator, Anthony Robbins. That's how he introduced me. We'll see what he can do now, won't we? Right? Right? That's my introduction. And then he wanted to say, he had a very publicized divorce years ago. I've been married for 10 years since that time, right? And my divorce was not a negative thing. He's highly publicized. I've never seen any place. He must have done some research on the internet. That was my introduction. Here he is, Tony Robbins. So what do you do? Part of me is pissed off, wanting to say, what the F are you talking about? And I came here to give a gift. I'm here to try to serve, and this is how you're going to introduce me? But, people get their little things. Chris and I are really good friends now. But, he had his impression, right? So, I got up and I made some joke about, first thing I said, wow, you must do really good research because I didn't see any publicity of my divorce, but I guess, you've done some homework on that, right? And I just kind of acknowledged it, is all I did. I said, but I will tell you my former spouse is very happy. And by the way, you won't see that in TED Talk because they cut the introduction, all those pieces, because it would have been embarrassing. It was terrible the way it was introduced. But then I got up and I said, listen, I got 18 minutes. Can I just tell you something? The shortest seminar I do is 50 hours, 50. And their eyes got this big. And I said, I'll tell you why. I'm not into just inspiring people and then they go back down. I am not Mr. Motivator. I am not the guy that says, go to your garden and say, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds. You know, I'm here to show you what the weed is so you and I can be smart and figure out what to do and take it out. I'm into something that's a practical solution. What are people starting to say in the audience? Oh, me too. You know, I'm not some big pumped up motivator like this guy. He's not that either. Maybe he's not like that. He said, by the way, in 18 minutes, there's no way in hell I'm going to do those for you. So I said, all of you are leaders. I came here to serve. I didn't come here for money. I didn't come here for fame and fortune. I have a little bit of that, fortunately, in my life, and I kind of teased. I see at least my teeth, and I made fun of myself or something. And then I just said, look, you're all welcome to come to one of my events, and I've also got some tapes here I'm going to give them to all of you because I know you will influence other people. I was just totally sincere, and I tried to give, and they got I was here to give and not to take, and it changed the identification immediately. And people started going, still wasn't there. Then how did I do it? I went, okay, I only got a few minutes. I got to grab them, so I got to bring everybody together so everybody connects, and I said, it's the first time I ever did it, who here has ever failed before? I did it spontaneously. I had no plan. I didn't have my little triangle out. I had a different triangle. The triangle changes once I stand in the room, but I know the overall feel. And so nobody raised their hand. That's not working too well. But I don't give up. Just like these are pig-headed discipline would be the word that Chet would use for it. For me, it's relentlessness. It's passion. And I asked the question again. I said, thanks for your full participation. And a little chat. Who here has ever failed? I keep going until I get everybody in their hand. So from then on, by the way, where did I end? I did logic and reason. Am I attacking it fast? I told the story about me at 9/11 and with people. And in the middle of the story, right when the solution was there, my time was up. And they had been taking people, they literally walk up to people as you're finishing at that 18 minutes, you know, the President of the United States, and they interrupted him. So I looked down and everybody was in a trance from me telling the story, and even he had not realized I was over. And I was 2 minutes over, which to them would be like 20 years or 2 days, right? And so right at that moment, I looked at my watch. At the peak of the story, I'm telling a story about this man. It's 9/11. This man gets up and says to this woman whose husband just died in the tower, I'd like to cry for you. I'd like to feel sorry for you. But frankly, I'm a Muslim, so I have to say to you, it's retribution. It was on the day of 9/11. And the room's like, and I said, and I had to intervene right then and there. And then I looked down and I went, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I said, I'm 3 minutes over my time. I do not want to be disrespectful. I'm so sorry. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. And I walked off in the middle of the story, right? And what do you think happened? People were like, oh! People started laughing, screaming, and so he had to invite me back. Okay, I'm sorry, you know? And so I finished with the solution very respectfully in the next 4 or 5 minutes, right? And I had the longest TED Talk they've ever had in history, but people were very happy. And at the end, my call to action, which is why I really went there, was study the internal map. Become a student of the internal web, the thing that connects you. Don't just think of the external web. What influences human beings, you must master. If you can become a master of influence, and you can influence yourself, if you can understand what's really driving other people, if you can get inside their heads, if you can understand their blueprint of life and find a way to meet their needs, you cannot just meet your own needs, you can change the world. And people got it. And I left, and I'm going to do the same thing right now because I've gone way over my time. God bless you. Thank you very much.